Well, I've got Charles Clay this week. Charles Clay is a guy that's kind of hit or miss. He's been that way all season, but he's also been severely overlooked all season. The people that set these prices on tight ends, for some reason, just haven't given him any respect all year. I guess some of that has to do with his inconsistency, and he's got a little bit of a tough matchup this week, I'll admit that, but this is a guy to roll the dice on when you have to, and I have to this week.
Well, I also went searching for a tight end this week, and when I do that, I don't necessarily look for a player, but rather for a team. Arizona this year has been historically bad against tight ends. It makes no sense because Arizona is a pretty good defensive team, but they give up 22 points a game to rival tight ends. That is almost impossible. So who are they up against this week? They're up against the Rams, and the Rams have Jared Cook, a very average, maybe slightly below average tight end, but a guy who scored in the 30s against Arizona in week 1 when they matched up then. I think this is, again, a no-brainer. He's someone who, on an average day against Arizona, is going to double his value, and I just think it's one of the best value picks of the week.
You know what, I'll actually agree with Dave. Dave's got a better pick than I do at tight end this week, and the reason being is this matchup. The Arizona just is awful against defending the tight ends, like Dave talked about. 22 points, right, is what they give up. Next closest team is 16 points. I mean, it's just not even close. But I just couldn't fit him into my lineup. I didn't have that much money to spend, and I wasn't willing to sacrifice on any of my other positions because I was too in love with all my other players. So I couldn't get Jared Cook into my lineup this week, but he is a better value play. He's more consistent, and his matchup is incredible.
And something you've talked about all year long is I tend to play matchups, and you've cautioned me that, well, you've still got to have a decent quality player in that matchup. And so I looked at Cook's stats, and he's not a big name tight end, but they target him 5 or 6 times a game. He's scored 2 touchdowns the last 4 weeks. I mean, this is a legitimate average tight end. And if average teams are scoring 22 points from this position against Arizona, I certainly think he qualifies.
Well, for me, like I said, it just came down to price. I would have loved to have Jared Cook in my lineup too, but I couldn't, and he was just a little bit more expensive than my tight end. But when you go up to Graham and Gronkowski, you get that at that price level where you're choosing between him and even guys like almost Calvin. He's almost at that Calvin Johnson price range, or the Des Bryants, the AJ Greens, definitely in that price range. So if it came between Gronkowski and AJ Green in my lineup, or Des Bryant or Brandon Marshall, I'm taking the receivers.
Well, I agree, and that's the thing. In each one of our lineups, we have 3-star players, and if we were going to go with Graham or Gronkowski at tight end, that would come at the expense of one of those star players. I looked at the 3 guys that I have, and I really like all 3 matchups, and then if I didn't like the tight end matchup, well, then maybe I'd have to go with the high price guy. But I like the tight end matchup as well, so this week it all fit together well.